Imagine that every night, just before falling asleep, you were holding a key in your hand, a key capable of opening the doors of your subconscious, that silent inner realm, which, as Carl Jung observed, influences far more of our choices, emotions, and even our destiny than we like to admit. This video is about that moment, that fragile, almost invisible threshold between waking and sleep, and how the last words you speak to yourself before drifting off quietly shape the reality you wake up to. Think about it for a moment. How often do you lie down in bed, carrying the weight of the day with you? Unfinished conversations, unpaid bills, lingering doubts, fears about things that haven't even happened yet. Without realizing it, you hand all of that to your subconscious as if it were silence. And silence in the unconscious is never empty. What you fall asleep with tends to repeat itself the next day. Not because life is cruel, but because the psyche is consistent. Jung showed us that the unconscious doesn't argue, it absorbs, it listens, and then it responds through mood, behavior, perception, and circumstance. But Jung also pointed to another path, a quieter one, a way of communicating with the psyche during this almost sacred moment. When the boundary between conscious thought and unconscious imagery becomes thin, fluid, permeable, you may have noticed it yourself. In those last few minutes before sleep, your mind begins to wander without effort. Images appear. Thoughts feel. Strangely familiar yet symbolic. Memories blur into imagination. Nothing is fully logical, yet everything feels meaningful. Psychologists call this the hypnagogic state, the transition from waking consciousness into the depths of sleep. Jung recognized this as a powerful gateway between worlds. During this phase, the conscious mind relaxes its grip. The inner critic softens, and the subconscious opens its doors wide. It is as if the soul itself prepares to receive messages that would be drowned out by daytime noise. As your body sinks into relaxation, a direct channel opens to the deeper layers of your being, the layers that usually operate in silence, the subconscious. That vast inner library containing every experience, belief, emotion, and unrealized possibility. And in this receptive state, the mind becomes extraordinarily sensitive to what you give it. How many nights have you gone to sleep replaying the same problems? A conflict that never reached resolution, a fear that hasn't even materialized yet, a sense of pressure, failure, or inadequacy. Your psyche absorbs that emotional charge like seeds planted in fertile soil, and the result is often the same. You wake up tired, heavy, as if you spent the night reliving the same struggles over and over again. But here is the quiet truth. If you change the quality of what you offer your mind during this transition, you begin to change the quality of your lived reality. Every night becomes an opportunity, a moment to plant different seeds, seeds of trust, seeds of clarity, seeds of inner stability. Imagine for a moment lying down and consciously choosing different final words, not to deny your problems, not to escape reality, but to offer your subconscious a new direction. You might say, softly and sincerely, I choose to release the weight of today. I allow myself to trust what is coming. My mind knows how to create a new path for me. Notice the shift. These are not affirmations meant to force positivity. They are symbolic instructions, gentle suggestions that the unconscious understands far better than logical arguments. Jung taught that the psyche speaks primarily through images, symbols, and emotion. Words, when charged with feeling and intention, reach far deeper than daytime reasoning ever could. When you fall asleep surrounded by images of trust, transformation, and openness, your unconscious begins to work with you, not against you, while you rest. In this quiet passage between wakefulness and sleep, you become a subtle sculptor of reality. Not through effort, but through alignment. It is an alchemical process, delicate, invisible, yet profoundly powerful. A transformation that takes place not through struggle, but through stillness. And this understanding opens the door to a truth that is both simple and revolutionary. Every night, you are given the chance to redraw your life, one conscious decision at a time, one chosen thought, one intentional phrase. As you learn to honor this moment before sleep, you may notice that not only your dreams begin to change, but the way you experience your days. Your reactions soften, your perception shifts, your inner world becomes less hostile, more cooperative. You begin to act as a conscious architect of your inner landscape and therefore of your future. Because the last thoughts before sleep are not random. They are the first foundations of who you will be tomorrow. And now that you understand the power of this transition between waking and sleep, something even more important becomes clear. What matters is not just relaxing, but choosing. Choosing the words, the images, the emotional tone you entrust to your mind before surrendering to rest. Jung reminded us that everything experienced in the unconscious returns through dreams, habits, emotional patterns, and life circumstances. Those final words before closing your eyes act like a silent command, not as rigid programming, but as symbolic guidance. And here lies the hidden beauty of it all. The subconscious does not distinguish between what is imagined and what is real. It accepts. And then it organizes reality around what it has received. Consider 2 different nights. In the first, someone lies down thinking, almost automatically, "I'm exhausted. My life isn't working. Nothing ever goes right. No drama, no awareness, just repetition." The subconscious receives this as instruction and continues producing fatigue, frustration, and limitation. In the second scenario, the same person closes their eyes and gently says, "I trust the process of life. I'm open to new possibilities. My body and mind know how to regenerate." Feel the difference. The second message doesn't just bring calm, it activates creativity in the unconscious. It shifts the inner posture from contraction to openness. These are not empty words, they are symbolic seeds. And what you plant in that quiet, receptive soil before sleep quietly becomes the structure of your tomorrow. This is not mysticism detached from psychology. It is depth psychology in practice. A nightly ritual of conscious alignment, a dialogue with the deeper self, a way of allowing your inner world to reorganize while you rest. And once you understand this, sleep is no longer just rest, it becomes transformation. What matters is not just what you say, but whether you feel something shift inside you when you say it. Even if that feeling lasts only a few seconds, it leaves a deep imprint. In that brief moment of sincerity, emotion fuses with thought, and that fusion is what the subconscious absorbs. Do not hand your subconscious the leftovers of your day. Do not give it stress, unfinished worries, or mental noise. Instead, offer it visions, phrases, and felt states that are aligned with the reality you are ready to build. Because as Jung taught, what you reject continues to control you, but what you consciously accept can be transformed into power. Within every human being exists a quiet force, a silent instinct of renewal. Jung referred to this as an archetype of transformation, an innate psychological impulse to grow, change, and evolve even when the conscious mind resists. Look at nature. A single seed, no matter how small, carries within it the blueprint of an entire tree. Whether the soil is dry or rocky, the seed will still attempt to break its shell and reach the light. The exact same process exists within you. Every night, when you close your eyes, that inner force awakens in silence. The subconscious begins organizing images, symbols, and memories, much like someone assembling a vast puzzle. If you feed it fear, doubt, and worry, it assembles a reality shaped by chaos. But when you offer it emotions of trust, images of renewal, and words charged with meaning. That same archetype activates a different pattern, one that moves you toward growth. Let me share a short story. There was a woman who, for years, fell asleep every night with a sense of failure. Her final thought was always the same: "I can't do this. Life is unfair to me." Unsurprisingly, she woke up every morning carrying the same weight. One night, she decided to change only one thing: her final words before sleep. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I allow myself to be reborn. I accept life as an ally. Each day, I transform." Night after night, these words, spoken with genuine feeling, activated the archetype of transformation within her. Almost imperceptibly, her life began to mirror that inner shift. Jung observed that the subconscious communicates through symbols. When the psyche moves toward healing or growth, it often produces images of rebirth and renewal. This is why dreams frequently contain symbols of metamorphosis: butterflies, rivers, bridges, paths, fire. The unconscious is always signaling that it is making room for something new. This regenerative power is not reserved for special people. It is universal. It exists within you right now, waiting to be consciously engaged. And the most powerful moment to engage it is just before sleep, when the defenses of the conscious mind are at their weakest. Allow yourself to soften. Let the subconscious work freely. Surround this moment with words and images that say, silently but clearly, "I choose to open myself to my own rebirth." Night after night, this simple act creates a spiral of transformation. It begins invisibly, but soon it becomes tangible. Jung once said something profoundly revealing: "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Within the unconscious lives a part many people prefer to avoid: the shadow. The shadow contains everything you have repressed, hidden, or refused to accept: fear, anger, insecurity, shame, forbidden thoughts. Imagine the shadow as a child locked in a dark room. The more you ignore it, the louder it knocks. This is why, when you lie down at night, your mind often brings up memories, worries, or emotions you would rather forget. It is not punishment. It is not bad luck. It is the shadow asking to be seen. Here's another brief story. There was a man who tried to force positivity every night. He repeated beautiful affirmations, but beneath them lived fear, resentment, and guilt. His dreams became heavy, restless. His mind felt rebellious. Eventually, he realized something crucial. Before speaking words of light, he had to acknowledge his darkness. So he began saying, "I see my pain. I accept my anger. I thank my shadow because it too belongs to me." Something shifted. His sleep deepened. His mind softened. And only then did positive intentions find fertile ground. Accepting the shadow does not mean surrendering to it. It means integrating it. When anger is acknowledged, it can transform into courage. When vulnerability is accepted, it becomes strength. So before sleep, do not fight the shadow. Speak to it. Recognize its presence. Only then plant the seeds of transformation. Jung believed imagination was not an escape from reality, but a stabilizing bridge between the conscious and subconscious mind. Everything in the human world, buildings, music, inventions, even this video, existed first as an image in someone's inner world. Imagination is where reality is rehearsed before it manifests. And the moment before sleep is when that bridge is most open. When you consciously choose what you feel, imagine, and say in that space, you are not escaping reality. You are shaping it, quietly, gently, from the inside out. And that is how transformation truly begins. Picture this. You lie in bed just before sleep takes you. Your body loosens, your breathing slows, your thoughts begin to drift. The reins are finally released. This is the perfect moment to use imagination not as escape, but as transformation. Instead of letting the mind wander aimlessly, you choose to create images. Let me guide you through a simple inner experience, one designed to plant new realities within you. Close your eyes and imagine a softly lit street ahead of you. You walk along it effortlessly. Each step feels steady, grounded, calm. In the distance, the sun begins to rise, spreading warmth and quiet hope across the horizon. Notice what this scene awakens inside you. The subconscious does not register this as fantasy. It records symbols. The light post becomes guidance. The rising sun becomes renewal. The steady walk becomes confidence. These symbols speak directly to the unconscious, bypassing logic, bypassing doubt, and when repeated night after night, they begin to shape the emotional architecture of your days. When you imagine peace, your mind starts looking for peace. When you imagine abundance, your subconscious creates space to recognize it in the outer world. When you imagine courage, you wake up with the strength to meet challenges differently. Carl Jung taught that symbols speak to the soul far more deeply than rational language ever could. This is why imagination is so powerful. It doesn't try to convince the conscious mind. It communicates directly with the subconscious in its own native language. Before sleep, allow yourself to imagine the life you wish already felt real. See the details, feel the emotions, step into the scene as if you belong there. This simple practice turns the night into a creative stage where you are both the author and the protagonist. As you sleep, the outer world grows. Quiet, but inside you, activity continues. Your heart beats, your cells regenerate, and your mind works silently, organizing memories, processing emotions, and reinforcing whatever messages you offered it just before sleep. This is where nightly reprogramming happens. Jung reminded us that the subconscious does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. To it, whatever is felt deeply becomes truth. This is why falling asleep anxious or afraid teaches the mind to reproduce those same emotions the next day. But when you fall asleep with words of trust, images of transformation, and emotions of openness, you are quite literally training your mind to construct a new inner reality. Think of the mind as a garden. If you plant weeds, weeds will grow. If you plant rose seeds and expect thorns, disappointment follows. What matters is not hope, but what you actually plant. Every night, when you close your eyes, you plant something, consciously or unconsciously. The question is, what are you choosing to plant? Let me share another scene. A young man struggling with deep insecurity decided to repeat a single phrase every night before sleep. I am enough. I am capable. At first, it felt meaningless, just words drifting into darkness. But night after night, those words took root. Within weeks, he didn't just feel different, he began acting differently. He spoke with more certainty. He stood a little straighter. He noticed opportunities he had once overlooked. This is nightly reprogramming in action. And here's the most important part. He didn't fight for it to work. He simply gave the subconscious the right material and let it do the work while he rested. It's as if while you sleep, an invisible architect begins constructing the foundation of the life you'll step into the next day. Every night, you face a quiet choice. Fall asleep captive to the problems of the day, or use that moment as a secret laboratory of transformation. Your internal dialogue is the most influential conversation you will ever have, and it's happening constantly, whether you notice it or not. Jung observed that the conscious and unconscious mind are always in dialogue. What you say to yourself shapes your thoughts, your emotions, and ultimately your actions. Imagine you had a friend who spoke to you the way you speak to yourself. If that voice constantly criticizes, doubts, and judges, the friend inside you becomes fearful and hesitant. But if that voice speaks with patience, trust, and encouragement, that inner friend becomes a powerful ally. The real shift happens when you consciously transform your inner dialogue, especially before sleep, when the mind is most receptive. Here are simple examples. Instead of thinking, "I can't handle this," try, "I have everything I need to face what comes." Instead of, "My life is hard," try, "I am capable of transforming my reality." Each small step brings me closer to who I am becoming. These phrases, when repeated with emotion and intention, are not empty affirmations. They are seeds. You can strengthen them further by pairing words with images. When you say, "I feel light and confident," imagine your body floating gently, muscles releasing, worries dissolving. This union of language and imagery creates a powerful imprint on the subconscious. Your inner dialogue does not need to be long or complex. It only needs to be sincere, emotional, consistent. Each night becomes an opportunity to reinforce the story you are choosing to live. Jung would say that this is where the journey of individuation quietly begins. The moment you stop being a passive observer of your life and begin acting as its conscious author. And this power exists before you ever fall asleep. Imagine this. Every single night, just before you fall asleep, you are handed a key. Not a metaphorical one, a real psychological key. A key that opens the door to your subconscious mind. That silent inner realm which, as Carl Jung understood, quietly shapes your emotions, your decisions, your patterns, and ultimately, your destiny. Most people never use this key. They lie in bed carrying the residue of the day, unfinished conversations, anxiety about tomorrow, regret about yesterday. They replay problems on a loop, unaware that in this precise moment, the boundary between the conscious and the unconscious is dissolving, and whatever crosses that boundary stays. Jung recognized this liminal state, the hypnagogic state, as a threshold between worlds, a moment when the rational mind loosens its grip and the deeper layers of the psyche become highly receptive. It is here, in this fragile transition, that the subconscious absorbs impressions with extraordinary intensity. Think about what usually happens. Your body relaxes, your breathing slows, your thoughts begin to drift. Images arise, memories surface, feelings without clear logic appear. This is not randomness, this is the unconscious opening its doors. And yet, most people unknowingly feed it fear. They fall asleep rehearsing conflict, they replay imagined failures, they relive emotions that never resolved. These emotional impressions are not neutral, they are seeds. Planted in fertile psychological soil, they continue to grow throughout the night, shaping dreams, mood, behavior, and perception the next day. This is why so many people wake up exhausted, heavy, unchanged, as if the same day simply restarted. But here is the truth Jung points us toward. If you change what you offer the subconscious in this moment, you change what it creates. Not by force, not by denial, but by direction. Before sleep, you are not meant to ignore reality. You are meant to reframe it. Imagine instead lying down and consciously releasing the day, not suppressing it, not fighting it, but gently saying inwardly, "I release today. I allow it to complete itself." Then you introduce something different, not logic, but symbolic intention. Because the subconscious does not speak in arguments. It speaks in images, emotions, and meaning. Jung taught that symbols bypass resistance. They speak directly to the soul. So instead of rehearsing fear, you offer a different inner message. I trust the process unfolding in me. I allow clarity to form while I rest. I am open to renewal. The words matter, but the feeling matters more. When even for a few seconds you feel what those words point toward, calm, trust, expansion, that emotion imprints itself deeply. The subconscious does not question it. It accepts it as reality. This is not wishful thinking. It is psychological mechanics. The subconscious does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly felt. It organizes your inner world around what you emotionally affirm. Think of nature. A seed does not need permission to grow. It only needs the right conditions. And within you exists what Jung called the archetype of transformation, an innate drive toward growth, renewal, and wholeness. No matter how resistant the conscious mind may be, this archetype is always active beneath the surface. Every night, when you close your eyes, that force awakens. If you feed it fear, it grows fear. If you feed it trust, it reorganizes your psyche around trust. This is why dreams so often carry symbols of change: roads, water, bridges, fire, rebirth. The unconscious is always trying to move you forward. Let me share a simple truth. Many people try to fall asleep, repeating positive phrases while internally rejecting themselves. They speak light while suppressing darkness, and the unconscious resists. Because before transformation, the shadow must be acknowledged. Jung warned that what we repress does not disappear. It returns as fate. So before offering light, you must make room for it. This means saying quietly, I see my fear. I acknowledge my anger. I allow my uncertainty to exist. This is not surrender. It is integration. When the shadow is recognized, it stops sabotaging. When emotion is accepted, it transforms. Fear becomes awareness. Anger becomes energy. Vulnerability becomes strength. Only then do your affirmations take root. Only then does the subconscious listen. Now imagine combining all of this. You lie in bed. You release the day. You acknowledge what you feel without judgment. You offer a symbolic direction. And then you imagine, not fantasizing wildly, but gently visualizing a scene that represents the life you are becoming. Perhaps a path opening, a sunrise, a steady walk forward. Your subconscious understands symbols far better than plans. As you drift into sleep, your body rests, but your psyche works. Neural pathways reorganize, emotional memory reshapes itself. The inner narrative begins to shift. This is not magic, it is alignment. Night after night, this becomes a habit. And habit becomes structure. Structure becomes identity. You wake up subtly different. You respond differently. You perceive differently. Not because you forced change, but because you allowed the unconscious to do what it naturally does when guided. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This moment before sleep is where that direction can finally change. Every night you are choosing, consciously or not, what tomorrow's self will be built upon. The question is no longer whether transformation is possible. The question is, what are you planting tonight? Because the last thoughts before sleep are never random. They are the first foundations of who you become next. What happens during the night is not random. It is not mental noise, and it is not meaningless imagery. What emerges in the hours of sleep are messages from the subconscious, organized responses to whatever was offered at the threshold between waking and dreaming. When you focus your mind before sleep, you are not escaping reality. You are tuning a receiver. Imagine a radio. If the frequency is clear, the signal comes through clean and coherent. If the frequency is chaotic, all you hear is static. Most people fall asleep tuned to static. They carry unfinished stress, unresolved tension, and mental noise into the night. Then they wake up confused, anxious, unrested, wondering why sleep did not restore them. What they fail to realize is this: they spent the entire night processing chaos, because chaos is what they handed to the subconscious at the moment it became most receptive. The mind is precise. It does not judge the input, it executes it. Now consider this instead. Just before sleep, you intentionally create a transition, not rushed, not forced, deliberate. Jung understood that transformation does not happen through effort alone, but through ritualized attention. Small symbolic acts repeated consistently reshape the psyche. Here is a simple practice inspired by that principle. A conscious transition breath. Lie down. Close your eyes. Take 3 slow, intentional breaths. On the first breath, acknowledge the day, not with analysis, not with judgment. Simply recognize this day is complete. On the second breath, release tension. Let the body soften. Allow the shoulders, the jaw, the chest to let go. On the third breath, bring your attention inward to the quiet center beneath thought. Now imagine a gentle light forming at your feet, not bright, not dramatic, soft, calm, steady. Watch it rise slowly through your body, ankles, legs, torso, chest, shoulders, neck, head, until it surrounds you completely. As it does, repeat silently, I entrust my deeper mind to restore and reorganize me. I allow my subconscious wisdom to work while I rest. I am safe to renew. That is all. 3 breaths, 1 image, 1 intention. This creates what Jung would call a secure container for individuation, a space where unconscious material can reorganize itself without resistance. The simplicity is the power, and the effects extend far. Beyond sleep, the subconscious does not remain confined to dreams. It expresses itself constantly through perception, reaction, decision, and behavior. People who practice this kind of intentional transition often report subtle but unmistakable changes. Unexpected clarity in the morning, solutions appearing without effort, a sense of being guided rather than pushed. Jung described this phenomenon as synchronicity, meaningful alignments that arise not from force, but from inner coherence. When conscious intention and unconscious processing align, life begins to organize itself differently. Even the body responds. Thoughts of pressure and fear before sleep keep the nervous system in a state of alert. The body cannot fully regenerate, but messages of safety and trust activate the parasympathetic system, allowing deep repair, hormonal balance, and cellular renewal. Modern research confirms what Jung intuited. The images and emotions we carry into sleep directly affect our biology. This makes the night ritual more than a psychological exercise. It becomes an act of integrated health, mental, emotional, and physical. And there is something deeper still. Jung distinguished between 2 layers of the unconscious, the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. When you speak to yourself before sleep using specific phrases, I release my fear, I allow change, you address the personal unconscious. But when you use symbols, light, water, paths, transformation, you speak to something older. You speak to the collective unconscious. These symbols are universal. They have appeared across cultures, myths, and spiritual traditions for thousands of years. A golden light is not just imagery. It is an archetypal signal of healing and integration. When you visualize it, something deep recognizes it instantly, beyond logic, beyond memory. This is why insights sometimes arise that feel larger than personal experience. Not imagined, remembered. You are accessing a deeper reservoir of meaning that has always been there, and this is the essence of the practice. Each night, you are not merely falling asleep. You are crossing a bridge between effort and restoration, between thought and symbol, between the conscious and the unconscious. Ancient traditions understood this intuitively. Modern psychology confirms it symbolically. The threshold before sleep is sacred, not in a religious sense, but in a psychological one. It is a portal, and when approached with awareness, it becomes one of the most powerful moments of transformation available to you. The question is no longer whether your subconscious is being shaped at night. It always is. The question is whether you are shaping it intentionally, because what you offer in silence tonight becomes the foundation of how you wake tomorrow. Some traditions call it the Akashic records, a universal memory field where every human experience leaves an imprint. Carl Jung approached the same idea from a psychological lens. He called it the self, with a capital S. The self is not the ego. It is larger. It is the organizing center of the entire psyche, containing both the conscious and the unconscious, the personal and the collective. The ego is what you think you are. The self is what you actually are, in potential, in depth, in totality. And there is a moment every night when the ego naturally loosens its grip. Just before sleep, the identity you defend all day, the role, the mask, the controllant begins to soften. It is as if the psyche quietly whispers, "Ego, you can rest now." When someone consciously affirms before sleep, "I open myself to my true nature," they are not speaking to the ego. They are inviting the self to step forward. And this invitation is powerful precisely because it happens when control diminishes. During sleep, the deeper intelligence of the psyche begins reorganizing itself, not according to fear, habit, or social conditioning, but according to inner purpose. Many people who practice intentional nighttime affirmations report something subtle but unmistakable, a feeling of being guided. Decisions that once felt confusing become obvious. Blocked paths seem to open without force. Life begins to feel coordinated rather than chaotic. This is not mysticism in the naive sense. It is the psyche aligning with its deeper organizing principle. Jung observed that symbols and affirmations repeated consistently, when charged with genuine emotion, do not remain neutral. They intensify. Over time, they form what he called positive complexes, energetic centers that radiate specific qualities throughout the psyche. For example, when someone consistently affirms, "I am supported, I am abundant," and feels that truth, even briefly, a nucleus begins to form. At first, it feels intentional and effortful, but with repetition, this nucleus gains autonomy. It starts working on its own. Experiences begin to align with it. Perception shifts. Opportunities are recognized where none were seen before. This is not magic. It is amplification. The subconscious does not respond primarily to words. It responds to emotion. A phrase repeated mechanically has little impact. The same phrase, spoken while feeling gratitude, as if the outcome were already real, sends powerful waves through the unconscious. Jung referred to this state as mystical participation, a momentary dissolution of separation between who you are and who you are becoming. In this state, transformation accelerates. Here is a way to access it. Before sleep, do not immediately repeat affirmations. Instead, ask yourself one simple question: how would I feel if this were already true? Let the feeling arise naturally. Peace, gratitude, relief, confidence, whatever emerges, allow it fully. Only then, from within that emotional state, offer your affirmation to the subconscious. This creates resonance, alignment. You are no longer asking for change. You are broadcasting it. Another profound aspect of nighttime work lies in what Jung called the compensatory function of the unconscious. The unconscious naturally seeks balance. If consciousness becomes too narrow, too rigid, too one-sided, the unconscious compensates through dreams, intuition, and inner imagery. A hyper-rational person may dream emotionally charged scenes. Someone consumed by work may dream of relationships or the body. The psyche always tries to restore wholeness, and this function can be consciously invited. Before sleep, you can say, "I ask my deeper mind to restore balance where today was excessive," or "I allow my unconscious wisdom to harmonize what is out of alignment." This is not submission, it is cooperation. Often solutions to problems that seemed impossible during the day appear effortlessly after sleep, not because the problem vanished, but because the unconscious explored connections the conscious mind could not. When you direct the psyche intentionally before sleep, you give it permission to work more freely. You stop fighting it, and it stops resisting you. This is the deeper truth behind nighttime transformation. You are not forcing reality to change. You are aligning with the intelligence already shaping it. Each night, when the ego softens, the self listens, and what you offer in that moment, emotionally, symbolically, intentionally, becomes part of the architecture of who you are becoming. Not tomorrow, not someday, but quietly, consistently. From within, there is a reason the unconscious responds so powerfully when we approach it correctly. When you consciously engage it before sleep, you are not worrying. You are mapping. It is as if you are handing a compass to an inner guide and saying, "This is where I need help." History is filled with examples of this process in action. Scientists who dreamed the solution to equations they could not solve while awake. Composers who woke up with melodies that had eluded them for weeks. Writers who found the perfect ending resting quietly on their pillow. This is not coincidence. It is the unconscious compensating for the limits of conscious thought. During the day, the conscious mind narrows. It focuses, analyzes, repeats patterns. At night, the unconscious expands. It connects, synthesizes, imagines, and you can work with this intentionally. Before sleep, instead of carrying a problem as anxiety, you can offer it as a question, calmly, without urgency. How can this be resolved? Creatively. What am I not seeing? I release control and trust that a deeper intelligence will work on this while I rest. When you do this, something shifts. You are no longer resisting uncertainty. You are collaborating with it. Jung called the mechanism that emerges from this collaboration the transcendent function. The transcendent function is not compromise. It is synthesis. It acts as a bridge between inner opposites that seem irreconcilable, reason and emotion, security and freedom, responsibility and desire, the persona you present to the world, and the shadow you hide from it. Most inner conflict comes from polarization. One part of you wants one thing, another part wants the opposite. This internal war drains energy and fragments identity. The transcendent function allows these opposites to meet, not halfway, but in a third position that honors both. Before sleep, you can activate this function consciously by naming the tension without trying to resolve it. For example, I recognize my need for stability, and I also recognize my need for expansion. I invite my deeper mind to show me how these can coexist. Dreams born from this intention often contain symbols of integration, bridges, unions, sacred marriages, hybrid figures that carry opposing qualities at once. These are not metaphors invented by the mind. They are energetic expressions of psychic synthesis. People who work regularly with the transcendent function report a distinct change. Decisions that once felt impossible become clear. Situations that seemed like forced choices suddenly reveal unexpected alternatives. Not two options, but a third path. This integration does not remain psychological. It reaches the body. Chronic tension often reflects unresolved inner conflict. When synthesis occurs during sleep, many wake with a surprising sense of physical ease, deeper breathing, relaxed muscles, renewed vitality, as if the body itself recognized that an internal war has ended. Another essential Jungian concept closely related to nighttime work is the temenos. In ancient cultures, the temenos was sacred ground, a protected space where the gods could enter. Psychologically, it represents an inner sanctuary where the ego temporarily steps aside, so deeper transformation can occur. The moments before sleep can become a temenos, if you treat them as such. When you consciously mark this time as sacred, dimming lights, slowing the breath, withdrawing attention from the outer world, you signal to the psyche, this is a protected space. You may work freely now. Many people notice that once this ritual is established, simply lying down evokes a subtle reverence. The body recognizes the threshold. The mind softens automatically. Within this sacred container, symbols gain extraordinary power. One such symbol Jung emphasized is the alchemical vessel, the container in which opposing elements are held long enough to transform. Before sleep, you can imagine your heart as this, your vessel, a living container where conflicting aspects of yourself are allowed to coexist without judgment. Another potent symbol is descent, a conscious journey downward into the depths of the unconscious. You might visualize walking down a spiral staircase, entering a cave, or sinking into the ocean. These images signal readiness, a willingness to meet what lies beneath awareness. Equally powerful is the archetypal union of opposites, often symbolized as the marriage of sun and moon, fire and water, king and queen. Before sleep, you can imagine two opposing forces within you meeting, embracing, merging into something new. These are not fantasies. They are the native language of the unconscious. When you work with them, you are no longer speaking about transformation. You are participating in it. All of this prepares the ground for one of Jung's most powerful tools, active imagination, a conscious dialogue with unconscious images and figures. Unlike daydreaming, active imagination is intentional but not controlling. You allow images to arise and then you interact with them. And the most receptive moment for this dialogue is just before sleep. Here, the psyche listens. Here, the guide awakens. And here, change begins, not through force but through alignment. Active imagination is not passive fantasy. It is conscious participation in the inner drama of the psyche. Unlike daydreaming, where images drift without direction, active imagination invites images to unfold on their own terms, while you remain present, attentive, and engaged. You do not force the scene, but you do not disappear from it either. You meet the unconscious halfway. Before sleep, this process becomes especially powerful. As the body relaxes and the grip of rational control loosens, you may imagine entering into dialogue with a figure that emerges naturally. It could appear as an old wise man, a healer, a powerful animal, a guide, a shadowy presence, or even a simple voice or light. What matters is not the form, but the relationship. You ask a sincere question, not to demand answers, but to invite them. And then you wait. You allow the response to arise without pressure, without correction, without filtering it through logic. Often, what comes surprises you. It does not sound like your everyday thinking. It carries a different tone, quieter, older, wiser. This is not imagination escaping reality. This is imagination revealing it. Through this dialogue, you speak directly to layers of yourself that are normally inaccessible. You give the unconscious a voice, and in doing so, you allow guidance to surface that cannot be reached through affirmations or rational planning alone. Many people notice that when active imagination begins before sleep, it continues during sleep. The figures they encountered return in dreams. The symbols deepen. What began as a conversation becomes a landscape. What began as a question becomes a story. This is because something essential has shifted. You are no longer commanding the unconscious. You are cooperating with it. And cooperation produces a different quality of transformation. When the unconscious is treated with respect rather than control, it responds with generosity. Its messages become clearer, its guidance becomes more precise, and its effects extend beyond the inner world. This is where Jung introduced one of his most mysterious and powerful ideas, synchronicity. Synchronicities are meaningful coincidences, events, that connect inner experiences with outer reality in ways that cannot be explained by simple cause and effect. For example, imagine that before sleep, you work with the image of a hawk, a symbol of clarity, vision, and higher perspective. You do not force meaning onto it. You simply sit with it, feel it, and allow it to speak to you. The next day, you unexpectedly encounter hawks. In conversation, in a book that falls open to the exact page you need, or perhaps even crossing your path in the physical world. In Jungian terms, these are not accidents. They are expressions of an underlying order, a dialogue between psyche and world. Jung suggested that mind and matter are not as separate as modern thinking assumes. When deep unconscious processes are activated, they generate ripples that extend beyond the individual psyche and manifest as synchronistic events. People who work regularly with the unconscious before sleep often report an increase in these experiences. Life begins to feel less random. Patterns emerge, connections reveal themselves, opportunities appear at precisely the right moment. When themes like healing, abundance, or direction are consciously engaged at night, the following days often bring encounters that mirror those intentions, a conversation, a book, an invitation, a sudden insight. Not because the universe is obeying wishes, but because inner alignment reorganizes perception and participation. You begin to feel accompanied, and that realization alone is transformative. Another profound layer of this work is the activation of archetypes of transformation, universal patterns that shape human development across cultures and eras. Archetypes such as the hero overcoming trials, the healer integrating wounds, the sage attaining wisdom, or the phoenix rising after destruction are not stories we invent. They are structures that live within the psyche itself. When you consciously invoke these archetypes before sleep, through images, symbols, or simple intention, you align yourself with currents of transformation far larger than your personal history. To imagine yourself rising like the phoenix is not fantasy. It is to activate the ancient pattern of death and rebirth. To envision shedding old skin like a serpent is not metaphor. It is to participate in the archetype of renewal. Across cultures and traditions, these symbols have carried power because they speak directly to the deepest layers of the human mind. People who engage these archetypes regularly before sleep often notice their dreams becoming more vivid, more meaningful, more alive. Butterflies emerge from cocoons, trees bloom after winter, characters die and return transformed. These dreams are not symbolic about change. They are change happening. They are the psyche reorganizing itself from the inside, and as these inner transformations stabilize, they inevitably shape waking life, decisions, relationships, courage, direction. This is the quiet miracle of working. With the unconscious before sleep, you are not forcing reality to change. You are allowing reality to realign around who you are becoming. And it all begins in the stillness, in the moment the world goes silent and the deeper mind finally begins to speak. What happens before sleep is not rest. It is inner alchemy. It is the moment when old aspects of the self loosen their grip and deeper forces step forward to reorganize the psyche. Jung understood this moment as a silent laboratory where transformation occurs naturally, where what no longer serves is dissolved and what is essential is recombined into a more integrated whole. Working with transformational archetypes before sleep is especially powerful during periods of transition or crisis, when life is changing, when identity feels unstable, when certainty dissolves. These archetypal patterns act like ancient guides. They have traveled the terrain of human transformation countless times. When you align with them, you are not walking alone. This is not imagination escaping reality. It is imagination structuring reality from within. One of the most profound dimensions of this nocturnal work is what Jung called the activation of the self, with a capital S. Unlike the ego, which is the conscious identity you use to navigate the world, the self is the organizing center of the entire psyche. It includes both conscious and unconscious dimensions. It is the deepest core of who you are, the point where the personal and the universal meet. Before sleep, you can consciously orient yourself toward this center. One simple but powerful way to do this is through symbolic focus. As you lie in bed, imagine a warm, golden light at the center of your chest. See it as a small sun, radiant and steady. With each breath, allow it to expand, filling your body, then extending beyond it. This image is not arbitrary. Across cultures and spiritual traditions, the radiant center appears again and again. The Egyptian solar disk, the sacred heart, the inner light. These are universal symbols of the self. As you hold this image, you may quietly affirm, "I align myself with my deepest center. May its wisdom guide me through sleep and into waking life." This simple act establishes a conscious relationship with the organizing intelligence of the psyche, and when the ego relaxes, as it naturally does during sleep, the self is given space to lead. People who practice this regularly often report a growing sense of inner stability. External circumstances may remain uncertain, but something inside becomes anchored. Decisions feel clearer. Relationships grow more authentic. Life begins to feel guided from a deeper place rather than driven by fear or impulse. Jung observed that the self always seeks expression and integration, but rigid ego identifications often block this process. Sleep dissolves that rigidity. It is the time when control softens and deeper order can emerge. Over time, this produces a subtle but profound shift. Life is no longer lived solely from the ego's limited perspective, but from a connection to a larger inner totality. This shift brings meaning back into focus. Life stops revolving only around personal desires and anxieties and begins to feel like participation in a larger pattern, what Jung referred to as the will of the self. You may sense that your life is not merely happening to you, but through you. Different phases of life activate different aspects of this work. In early adulthood, the psyche is often concerned with identity formation and establishing direction. Nightly work may focus on archetypes like the warrior, the explorer, or the creator, symbols of confidence, initiative, and manifestation. In midlife, when many experience what Jung called a crisis of meaning, the emphasis often shifts. The work becomes about shadow integration and reconnection with neglected parts of the self. Dialogues with inner figures, such as the anima or animus, can be deeply transformative during this phase. Later in life, attention naturally turns toward meaning, legacy, and wholeness. Archetypes such as the sage, the elder, or the mystic come forward. The connection with the self deepens, and the integration of life's polarities becomes central. Regardless of age, one principle remains universal. Work with the unconscious must serve individuation. Before sleep, this orientation can be reaffirmed simply, "May my work with the unconscious help me become more whole. May it allow me to express my unique gifts and live my deeper purpose." This sets an ethical direction for inner work. It is no longer about comfort, control, or personal gain alone, but about authenticity and contribution within a greater whole. There is also a fascinating extension of this practice, preparing the ground for lucid awareness in dreams. Lucid dreaming, becoming aware that you are dreaming while still within the dream, opens remarkable possibilities for healing and insight. Before sleep, a simple intention can be planted. When I dream, I will remember that I am dreaming. I will remain aware and receptive. This gentle affirmation, repeated without strain, signals readiness rather than force. It invites consciousness to remain present as the dream world unfolds. But whether lucidity arises or not, the deeper truth remains. Every night offers an opportunity for transformation. When you approach sleep consciously, you are not escaping the world. You are reshaping the inner conditions from which your waking life emerges. And slowly, quietly, the architecture of your life begins to change, not because you demanded it, but because you aligned with the deepest intelligence within you. There is a moment, just before sleep, when consciousness loosens its grip but does not disappear, a threshold where awareness softens, yet perception deepens. Jung understood this space as extraordinarily fertile, a living bridge between the ego and the unconscious. In this liminal state, even a single symbol can become a key, a hand, a door, a color that carries personal meaning. When you hold such a symbol gently in mind before sleep, not forcing it, not analyzing it, you are not imagining randomly. You are programming orientation. You are giving the unconscious a language it understands. Jung did not speak directly about lucid dreaming as modern psychology defines it, but he described something closely related: active dreams. Dream states in which consciousness participates rather than merely observes. In these moments, the distance between ego and unconscious narrows. Dialogue becomes possible. Symbols respond. Archetypal figures approach. Those who cultivate clarity of awareness through intentional pre-sleep focus often report profound experiences. Some encounter direct conversations with their fears, long-ignored complexes, or shadow figures. Others access creative capacities unavailable in waking life. Some rehearse new emotional responses to old wounds. Others experience expanded states of consciousness that permanently shift their sense of identity. The dream is no longer a message delivered after the fact. It becomes a real-time encounter. This is what makes conscious dreaming transformative. You are no longer decoding symbols from the outside. You are meeting them from within. Closely related to this is a practice far older than modern psychology: dream incubation. In ancient Greece, seekers would sleep in the temples of Asclepius, asking the unconscious for healing or guidance through dreams. Jung deeply respected this practice because it treats the psyche not as a machine to command, but as an intelligence to consult. Dream incubation begins with a sincere question. Before sleep, you present one clear intention to the unconscious, not as an order, but as an invitation. Show me the origin of my creative block. Reveal the next step in my healing. Help me understand what I cannot see. This request is best accompanied by a simple ritual: writing the question down, holding a meaningful object, or pausing in silence. The key is attitude. The unconscious responds not to control, but to reverence. Those who practice incubation often receive answers that are astonishingly precise. An artist may dream an image that becomes the foundation of their next work. Someone facing a decision may dream a symbolic narrative that clarifies hidden dynamics. Others receive healing imagery that, when honored in waking life, catalyzes tangible change. Jung noted that incubated dreams frequently draw from the collective unconscious, using symbols that transcend personal memory and connect the dreamer to ancient patterns of wisdom. These dreams feel different. They carry weight, authority, meaning. And when the guidance received through dreams is honored, acted upon, the dialogue deepens, trust forms. The unconscious becomes more responsive, like a wise inner counselor that speaks more clearly the more you listen. Another powerful dimension of night. Work involves what Jung called complexes. A complex is a cluster of memories, emotions, and meanings bound by energy. Some complexes constrain us, like inferiority or fear, but others empower us: creativity, confidence, resilience. Before sleep, these positive complexes can be consciously cultivated. You do this by gathering emotional memory. Recall moments when you acted with confidence, times you were capable, when you were calm, expressive, or strong. Do not analyze, feel, then visualize. yourself responding to future situations with that same embodied quality. Emotion anchors memory. Memory organizes energy. Over time, this creates a positive, energetic nucleus within the psyche, a self-sustaining center that begins influencing thoughts, behaviors, posture, tone of voice, often without conscious effort. Those who work with this process consistently report real-world shifts. Financial confidence alters perception of opportunity. Creative complexes activate spontaneous ideas. Self-trust changes how the body moves through space. Nothing mystical is happening in the naive sense, but something deeply psychological and profoundly real is unfolding. The unconscious reorganizes itself around what is emotionally reinforced. Before sleep, the ego steps back, the deeper intelligence steps forward, and in that quiet exchange, the psyche reshapes itself, symbol by symbol, emotion by emotion, toward greater coherence. This is not about control, it is about collaboration. And when you learn to meet the unconscious with respect, clarity, and intention, the night becomes more than rest. It becomes initiation. When a positive inner pattern becomes truly integrated, Jung observed something remarkable. It no longer remains just a thought or belief. It evolves into what he called a healthy subpersonality, a specialized, autonomous aspect of the self that can be accessed when needed. Confidence becomes a resource you can draw from. Creativity becomes a mode you can enter. Clarity becomes a stable inner position. These subpersonalities are not masks. They are refined inner capacities, each with its own strengths, developed through emotional repetition and symbolic reinforcement. Over time, they form a living inner repertoire that supports you across different situations in life. But something even subtler happens when you work with the unconscious before sleep. Your filter of reality begins to recalibrate. The conscious mind filters reality constantly. It must. At every moment, there is more information available than you could ever process. So the psyche selects, based on past beliefs, expectations, emotional conditioning, and identity. This filter determines what you notice, what you ignore, and ultimately what feels real to you. Jung understood that perception is not neutral, it is conditioned. And just before sleep, that conditioning becomes flexible. When you affirm, I am open to perceiving new opportunities, I am attentive to meaningful connections and growth-supporting experiences, you are not engaging in wishful thinking. You are giving your unconscious new parameters for perception. During sleep, especially during REM phases, the brain reorganizes emotional memory and neural networks. Modern neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. Jung intuited it long before it could be measured. The psyche is most malleable when consciousness relaxes. People who regularly recalibrate their perceptual filter before sleep report a striking effect. They begin noticing patterns, connections, and opportunities that were always present but previously invisible. It feels as if they are living in a different world. Not because reality changed, but because their access to it expanded. This is especially powerful for those trapped in scarcity, victimhood, or chronic negativity. As perception shifts, new evidence accumulates, new actions follow, new results emerge, and a self-reinforcing cycle forms, one that gradually dissolves old, limiting beliefs, not by denial, but by contradiction through lived experience. Jung was clear. This is not toxic positivity. It is perceptual expansion, allowing the psyche to include possibilities it once excluded. Another profound application of night work with the unconscious is creative problem resolution. Jung observed that many problems feel unsolvable, not because solutions do not exist, but because the ego becomes fixated on a narrow range of approaches. The unconscious, however, is not bound by linear logic. It thinks in patterns, symbols, and unexpected associations. Before sleep, you can hand a problem to the unconscious, not as anxiety, but as trust. I invite my deeper intelligence to work on this while I sleep. Show me perspectives I cannot see. This activates what Jung called the transcendent function, the psyche's capacity to generate a new synthesis that transcends opposing viewpoints. During sleep, linear thinking quiets. The intuitive, holistic mode becomes dominant. Connections form that would be impossible during ordinary waking thought. This is why so many breakthroughs occur in dreams or moments just after waking. History is full of examples. Kekulé envisioned the structure of benzene after dreaming of a serpent biting its tail. Innovators, artists, scientists, again and again, report solutions arriving not through force, but surrender. You can strengthen this process through visualization. Imagine your problem as a three-dimensional structure gently dissolving into a vast inner space, an ocean, a workshop, a living intelligence within you. Set the intention that insights may arrive through dreams, sudden clarity upon waking, or unexpected realizations during the following day. Over time, this cultivates what Jung described as the creative personality, a psyche in which conscious and unconscious cooperate rather than compete. Flexibility increases. Originality deepens. Complex challenges become invitations rather than threats. And beneath all of this lies one of the most powerful dynamics Jung ever described, the activation of the central complex, the self. This is not the ego. It is the organizing center of the total psyche. When night work consistently aligns perception, emotion, imagination, and intention, the psyche begins orienting itself around this deeper center. Life decisions grow clearer. Inner stability strengthens. Meaning quietly returns. You are no longer forcing change. You are allowing a deeper intelligence to lead. And that is where transformation becomes inevitable. Unlike the ego, which represents our conscious identity and daily sense of self, the self holds a far greater importance in Jungian psychology. The self is the true center and totality of the psyche. It includes both the conscious and the unconscious, and functions as the deepest organizing intelligence within a human being. Across cultures and mystical traditions, the self has often been symbolized as a divine figure, a mandala, a radiant center, or even the axis of the universe itself. It represents wholeness, meaning, and inner order. Just before sleep, you have a rare opportunity to consciously reconnect with this center. One simple yet powerful practice is visualization. As you lie in bed, imagine a golden light, like a small sun or a luminous jewel, resting at the center of your chest. Let it glow steadily. As you focus on it, silently affirm, "I connect with my deepest self. May its wisdom guide me during sleep and upon waking." This practice establishes what Jung called the ego-self axis, a living connection between your waking identity and your deepest inner center. When this axis is active, the psyche begins to organize itself around a deeper truth rather than surface fears or habits. People who regularly cultivate this connection before sleep often report a profound shift in their dream life. Dreams become more coherent, more meaningful, and feel guided by a wisdom beyond personal logic. It is as if, even during sleep, an inner intelligence is gently leading the way, offering clarity, balance, and insight. Over time, this connection does not remain confined to the night. It begins to permeate waking life as well. Decisions arise from a deeper knowing. Actions align more naturally with long-term purpose. Daily choices feel less forced and more authentic, as if they are being guided from within rather than pushed by external pressure. Perhaps most importantly, this alignment creates a quiet sense of support. Even in difficult moments, there is a feeling of being held, oriented, and guided by something larger than the ego alone. Jung taught that connecting with the self is not the end of the journey, but its true beginning. When life is lived in alignment with this deeper center, meaning expands, joy deepens, and service to the world becomes more genuine. The nightly practice becomes a daily renewal, a return to what is most true and essential within you. With this understanding, each night, before sleep, becomes more than a time of rest. It becomes an invitation to reconnect with the deepest source of wisdom and transformation you carry within. The final thoughts and images you offer your subconscious are not random. They are seeds planted in the stillness of the night and nourished by your most sincere intentions. Jung reminded us that we are not isolated individuals moving through life alone. We are expressions of a larger, interconnected consciousness. When we work consciously with our own unconscious, we also contribute, quietly but meaningfully, to the healing and evolution of collective human awareness. Each night, you choose to fall asleep with intention, clarity, and compassion. You send subtle waves of transformation outward. May this practice lead you toward deeper peace. May the seeds you plant tonight grow into clarity, authenticity, and purpose. May they blossom not only in your own life, but also enrich the shared human experience we all belong to. The journey toward your most authentic essence begins with a single conscious breath before sleep, and continues with every moment of intention you choose to create. Sleep well, dream deeply, and allow those dreams to shape the life your soul came here to live.